101. The Sun and Moon are not less than 3,000 miles above the surface. Over the course of a day or night, both objects do not appear to change size. PERIGEE and APOGEE arguments are not valid as they are over a course of a month, when the argument is over a course of a day. 102. Flat earthers misinterpret the 20+ degree tilt of the Earth. In actuality, if the Earth was tilted 0 degrees, relative to its ecliptic, then it will be equinox everywhere. If it is tilted 23.4 degrees relative to its ecliptic, then it won't be equinox everywhere. 103. The Suez Canal was built without locks because both ends of said canal are level, not flat. 104. Flat earthers employ the shill gambit and accuse others of being paid by some conspiracy for only being against the flat earth. They use this rhetoric to avoid addressing the argument and attack the person instead. Since flat earthers do this, this is another proof of their desperation, and that the Earth is a sphere. 105. Because the Earth is a sphere, the further high you go, the more of the Sun you can see after the Sun set below the horizon from a person on the ground's vantage point. This essentially means, after the Sun has set you can see it by going up. 106. You can see the Moon after the Moon has set from the ground's vantage point if you go up. 107. Many flat earthers shout, the globe model cannot be demonstrated using the scientific method. In actuality, it can be. Jeranism and Bob Noddle both proved Earth was a sphere. 108. Bottles of water can easily prove that the horizon is below eye level from a plane's altitude. 109. Al-Biruni determined the radius of the Earth by measuring the dip of the horizon from the top of a mountain. You can replicate this today. 110. At sea level, water levels show the horizon to be the same height as the eye level. If you go higher though, you can see the same levels show the horizon to be below eye level. 111. The reason rockets fly straight up, then parabolically, is to get into orbit easier. If they did fall into the ocean somewhere, you should be able to see it anywhere from any plane or drone, or anything for that matter. 112. Your unreasonable expectation of rockets flying parabolically is because you think the Earth is flat. Also, you cannot expect a rocket to go straight up, then rotate 90 degrees and shoot itself into orbit. It's more energy efficient to fly parabolically. 113. Halving the distance to the Moon quadruples its light intensity, but also quadruples the Moon's apparent size as demonstrated by the inverse square law. 114. Stars in the southern sky will prove a rotating, wobbling spherical Earth. This is impossible if people are facing away yet see the same set of stars. 115. Airy's failure proved that the ether didn't exist. George Biddle Airy failed to confirm the ether theory by measuring stellar aberration. The failure in Airy's failure was the failure of proving the ether, not the Earth's motion. 116. The stellar aberration was the proof of heliocentric model, not the geocentric model. 117. The Andromeda Galaxy is not the Milky Way galaxy, unlike what flat earthers think. 118. Orion is a constellation visible on the celestial equator, and thus visible throughout the world. The angle Orion makes during rising and setting corresponds to observers' latitude, and so does its altitude during culmination. All observations are only consistent on a sphere Earth. 119. In latitude 23 degrees 53, longitude 35 degrees 46, Captain Wilkins reported that the Southern Cross and Polaris were both distinctly visible at midnight. Both latitudes and longitudes were north of the equator. Samuel Rowbottom stole this observation and said you can see it from 23 degrees south latitude, and effectively lied. 120. The Big Dipper is always visible north of 41 degrees north latitude, and is sometimes invisible, partially visible, or rarely visible from the more southerly latitudes. 121. Crux is sometimes partially, rarely or sometimes hidden and visible from 26 degrees north latitude, and it can be seen south of 26 degrees north latitude. It is always visible from 26 degrees south latitude. 122. The Almagest is a 2nd century treatise on the apparent motion of stars and planets by Ptolemy. It has a star catalogue where we can compare it to a modern chart and establish the shift of stars between two periods. 123. In 1729, there was another star chart that we can use to examine the drift of Polaris by comparing it to a modern chart. Polaris in this chart is visibly away from the North Pole, contrary to the claims made by flat earthers that Polaris has never been seen to drift. 124. Circumpolar stars are always in the sky because of their proximity to a celestial pole. On the equator, there is 0 circumpolar stars. On the poles, every visible stars are circumpolar. 125. The constellations have changed and will change in the future. We cannot visually observe stars' proper motions, but with precise instruments we can measure their motions. 126. The lack of stars in space pictures are because they are too dim compared to the primary objects in the pictures. 127. A fire on a candle is not the same cause as a fire on the sun. Reason is, nuclear fusion on the sun powers the sun. It fuses hydrogen atoms into helium atoms. Said reaction doesn't need external sources like oxygen. 128. Southern stars do not rotate around Polaris. This is easily proven by going to the southern pole. Yes, there is Polaris Australis, but it's very dim to be seen by the naked eye. 129. Make a scale on how far objects are on your little disk Earth. A mile, a kilometer, whatever. Then use that scale to estimate the distances between Melbourne and Sydney using only your scale. Then use that same scale to measure the distance between London and New York, using only your own scale. Then see if these scales correlate with reality. If they don't, your flat Earth is dead. 130. Auckland and Madrid are near antipodal pair. Any flight between an antipodal pair have similar durations, even if the flights have different directions. This is only consistent on a spherical Earth. 131. By tracing Polaris's altitude from multiple locations on a flat Earth, the lines will not point to a consistent position of Polaris. This single-handedly destroys the flat Earth. 132. Many people have crossed Antarctica in the past, which are impossible on a flat Earth. 133. The sun's paths are consistent with a spherical Earth, not a flat Earth. 134. There are flights that are also diverted to airports south of the equator, single-handedly proving Earth is a wobbling sphere. 135. The December solstice disproves the flat Earth as demonstrated on this image. 136. If you insist miniaturized models should work exactly the way how a real-life phenomena or thing works, then we can say that a toy Lamborghini that uses batteries can be used to conclude that a real Lamborghini uses electric engines. 137. Many flat earthers love using false analogies to explain away a phenomena. We can apply their false analogies elsewhere to show how ridiculous it is, as this image shows. 138. The long shape of the sun's reflection on the ocean can be demonstrated by using a sheet of wrinkled aluminum foil. By placing it over a curved surface we can see it producing the same result. 139. The sun, using a solar filter, appears the same size over the course of one day. 140. How does water in the air produces 1,000 times more refractive effect than liquid water? 141. Some flat earthers say that the horizon will never appear curved, or geometric in other words, regardless of altitude. They're wrong. Here's some pictures. 142. Some flat earthers ask why is the curve always at the sides no matter where you look. It has to do with the geometry of a sphere. And this statement actually proves they're afraid of spheres. 143. Many flat earthers ask for pictures of Earth that aren't composites, CGI, cartoons or paintings. Here's one from 1972, one from Apollo 8 showing Earthrise. 144. Over 50 miles. Light can curve less than a degree because 50 miles doesn't even have 1 degree of curve. It's less than 1 degree of curve, so light doesn't even have to bend that much. 145. Some flat earthers say lasers don't curve and are unaffected by any mediums. In actuality, lasers are still light and they are affected just like any other form of light in a medium. 146. The moon is red during a lunar eclipse, due to Rayleigh scattering and refraction. Some flat earthers say that the moon is supposed to be invisible during a lunar eclipse. The moon still receives sunlight, albeit longer frequencies of it, which we perceive as red. 147. All railways follow Earth's curvature regardless of distance. Elevation still conforms to Earth's curvature, but is away from the Earth. 148. Flat earthers use GPS. Since GPS stands for Global Positioning System and not Ground Positioning System, flat earthers are henceforth delusional. 149. This 2012 blue marble picture shows a very big USA due to perspective issues, and I'll link the discussion about it in the description. 150. Your pizza Earth fails to explain how sunsets, sunrise, seasons, eclipses, all at the same time along with stars rotating around the Earth. Your pizza Earth also fails to fit the observation that the Milky Way's brighter parts are behind the Sun 6 months later. Meanwhile, these all are simultaneously explained by the Earth orbiting around the Sun with the Moon orbiting it, with the Earth spinning on its axis. 151. Constellations on the other side of the ecliptic are invisible now, but visible 6 months later. This is inexplicable by a magical personal dome. 152. If the Sun is the cause of the Coriolis effect, then this means that if the Sun goes from tropic to tropic, then in the summer solstice, above the equator, there would be clockwise hurricanes, and in the winter solstice, below the equator, there would be counterclockwise hurricanes, which don't occur because Earth is a sphere, and northern hemisphere hurricanes spin counterclockwise, while southern hemisphere hurricanes spin clockwise. 153. Flat earthers think that science is religious dogma. It isn't. They use the same device invented by the religion, called science. They invented a new term for it called scientism, which is stupid. Also, Newton's gravitational model was accepted by science, but his contributions to medicine were rejected by science as he was putting his nose in a field where it didn't belong. 154. Don't use over-precise numbers down to the picometer. It is unnecessary for calculating Earth curve. Down to the centimeter is necessary for calculating Earth curve. 155. There is no such thing as a distance limitation for any camera. The limitation comes down to object size, camera size and what the camera lens is built for. Example, a camera cannot recognize a coin from 2 miles away, but the very same camera can recognize the moon, which is thousands of miles away. 156. Real-world perspective will never make an object appear to go down unless it's obstructed. This obstruction is the Earth's curvature. Your distance limitation and maximum distance tantrum about cameras do not work. They aren't built for other tasks. These other tasks have telescopes built for them. 157. The ISS can only see 3% of the Earth because it is at 27,600 kilometers height. This comes down to perspective. 158. The reason Neil deGrasse Tyson said that the Earth was a pear shape was because it is, though very slight. It isn't visible to the naked eye, but what causes this is the centrifugal force, a byproduct of inertia working against centripetal force. 159. Crepuscular rays come down to perspective. If you say the crepuscular rays are proof of a local sun, then we can say the anti-crepuscular rays are proof of an underground sun. 160. Your senses are easily tricked and fooled much to the dismay to what you say. Such is demonstrated by this refracted black swan oil platforms. 161. Both NASA and the Saros cycle aren't needed to predict eclipses. This Python script can predict eclipses. And no, such scripts are for predicting, not for actually making the object behave such way like flat earthers will strawman about. 162. Both the Moon and Earth rotate counterclockwise. However, the shadow moves eastward because said shadow is influenced by the moon's linear speed, not angular speed. Flat earthers love misinterpreting this. 163. Many people attack you if you attack memes. Same thing with some flat earthers. Since pro-flat earth communications are sometimes in the form of memes, they use this format because it is immune to counter-arguments against said memes, saying that the counterer takes it too seriously. This, however, proves they are more than desperate to use such memes. 164. Personal domes are ad hoc because 1. It tries to fit observations, but its mere existence disproves the flat Earth because 1. The sun should be able to go through it. 2. Why doesn't seasonal refractions affect such domes? 3. It attempts to account for observations on a globe, but by using personal domes they prove their desperation to make observations fit. Otherwise, without it, someone could see Polaris from Australia due to law of perspective. 165. Using animations to simulate where the satellite, module, or otherwise artificial space objects to find their whereabouts does not equal said objects being faked. 166. Many flat earthers cite ancient cultures believing in a flat earth. Ancient wisdom is not modern-day wisdom, and ancient science is mostly archaic, disproven or otherwise outright pseudoscientific. Such rhetoric are the fallacies of appeal to ancient wisdom. 167. Can the changing constellations be explained away by personal domes? The sunsets and sunrise being explained away by the sun moving away from the observer, eclipses, seasons being explained by the sun moving from tropic to tropic and the sun simultaneously causing the Coriolis effect. No, it fails to explain observed reality. 168. From proof 167, none of that can be explained more better than a spherical Earth with gravity and the spherical moon orbiting the Earth, while the Earth simultaneously orbits the Sun with an axial tilt of more than 23.4 degrees relative to its ecliptic. And then, both the seasons, eclipses, day and night, Coriolis effect are explained simultaneously. Also, the Moon's orbit is tilted 5 degrees relative to the Earth's ecliptic. 169. The temperature caused by the tilt has an annual cycle. The Earth is also rotating. 170. Mark Twain never said, "It's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled." Flat earthers use this statement to ridicule us globe earthers. In actuality, they are the ones that are ridiculous for misattributing someone. 171. Buzz Aldrin was quote-mined by flat earthers when he was being interviewed by a girl. You should have watched the full interview, which was 17 minutes long. 172. Conan O'Brien incorrectly said that he watched Buzz Aldrin land on the moon. Buzz Aldrin corrected Conan that what Conan saw was just an animation to give the audience a visual representation of the landing. They didn't go to the moon's surface in advance to set up cameras to report the landing. 173. The documentary, Dark Side of the Moon, is actually a mockumentary. Said mockumentary features guests like Donald Rumsfeld, Henry Kissinger, Alexander Haig, Vernon Walters, Buzz Aldrin and Stanley Kubrick's wife. 174. This picture doesn't show Neil Armstrong coming down the ladder onto the moon. This picture actually shows Buzz Aldrin. The "One Small Step" video was taken from a TV camera mounted on the side of Apollo 11 lunar module. 175. Apollo 17 lunar module liftoff was taken by a TV camera mounted on the lunar rover, and was remotely controlled from Houston. 176. The only lost data was the raw video before the conversion to NTSC for TV broadcasting. Said raw video was the raw video of Apollo 11. 177. WikiLeaks never showed any evidence for a flat Earth. Nor did it say space was fake. Nor did it say the Earth is flat. Nor did it say anything even remotely close to a flat Earth like the Apollo lunar missions. 178. Wherever you are on the Earth, the Moon's orientation correlates with latitude. 179. Coriolis effect is too small for an aircraft, but aircraft still account for it. Also, Coriolis effect is the result of basic physics resulting from rotating bodies. That's why the equator is the dividing line. 180. Satellite phones have been proven to work in areas without any cell phone towers, such as in the middle of an ocean. 181. Pareidolia are naturally occurring phenomena that do not disprove a globe Earth, and only serves to disprove the flat Earth, because you cite things that naturally happen, as if they're too much of a coincidence. 182. JPEG compression will show artifacts in adjusted pictures that are in the format of JPEG. Such artifacts are then used by flat earthers to imply that said objects in the compressed images are tampered with. 183. Motion sickness doesn't detect speed. The Earth does not induce any other acceleration besides centrifugal acceleration and gravitational acceleration. 184. There are practically no matter in space, so therefore we can safely say that friction is not a problem. Yes, there are matter, but we said practically, not exactly nor perfectly. Due to tidal friction, though, Earth's rotational kinetic energy is being transferred to the Moon, hence why it is moving away from us. 185. Moon's lesser gravity doesn't supersede Earth's gravity. It is the reason only tides happen. However, though, the oceans do not fly away into the surface of the Moon, but such tides are a side effect of the Moon exerting its gravitational influence on Earth. 186. Yes, orbits can be elliptical. Since Earth is a sphere, the Moon is always falling towards the Earth. However, though, since it has momentum towards another direction, and such momentum having slightly higher magnitudes than Earth's gravitational pull from such a distance, the Moon is locked into an elliptical orbit. Due to tides, though, Earth's rotational kinetic energy means the Moon is slightly moving away from the Earth, and is also why days get shorter over millions of years. 187. Every line of latitude on a flat Earth would gradually get bigger and bigger, but it doesn't. It gets smaller and smaller. If someone isn't allowed beyond a certain latitude, why not fly a plane over that latitude, then fly the same plane over the equator? Time it and compare it to what a sphere Earth expects. 188. A cannonball fired vertically that went up at an average of 14 seconds, will fall back at an average of 14 seconds back to the ground no more than 2 feet away from the cannon, sometimes directly back into the muzzle. Such cannonballs retain the inertia from the Earth, and are affected by the Coriolis effect. The same cannonballs, though, can be 2 feet away from the cannon because the cannonball can have a slightly linear speed. 189. Galilean moons are the first moons observed to orbit an object that isn't Earth, nor was it the Sun. Io, Europa, Ganymede and Callisto are 4 moons we can easily observe using a binocular or a telescope. 190. The sky in one particular day appears to be practically identical, except that the Earth obstructs the view to a different part of the sky for a different observer on Earth, and daylight obscures the view to most objects in the sky. This is only consistent with a spherical Earth. 191. Planets are not stars. On casual observation, they appear as bright dots in the night sky, and most bright dots are stars. These specific bright dots, though, are not stars, they're planets. They do have phases. They also have visible terrestrial satellites orbiting them. 192. We can also determine the distance to the Sun by observing transits of Venus. Also, please shut up about how we know it's Venus, unhealthy skeptic. 193. Pictures of Venus that are supposedly real are out of focus. The Nikon P900 struggles to autofocus on point light sources like planets and stars. We can overcome this by manual focus or pre-focusing, or use a telescope or binoculars. 194. There are several flights south of the equator that are non-stop, such as the Johannesburg to Perth flights, Santiago to Sydney, Santiago to Auckland, Sao Paulo to Luanda or Johannesburg and more. 195. Commercial airlines don't fly through Antarctica because it's off-limits to airliners with an ETOPS 330 rating. Flat earthers say the mere inexistence of such flights through Antarctica disproves the globe. This isn't the case for one-off repatriation flights. 196. The Rainy Lake experiment proves the Earth is a globe since it matches the predictions that a globe model makes, but fails to match the predictions a flat Earth model makes. 197. Light has to bend unnecessarily too much to fit observation of sunsets and sunrise, while also explaining seasons simultaneously. 198. Lake Pontchartrain Causeway angling down the horizon is not due to refraction, but due to Earth curvature. This disproves the pizza Earth theory. 199. The Anachapa Island and the oil platform Grace observation matches the predictions a globe Earth makes, but fails to match the predictions a flat Earth makes. 200. And finally, these ISS spacewalks floating microscopic things that are visible, are not bubbles. They are ice crystals. Bubbles will always go up in water. These spread in every direction, not up. So this disproves the claim spacewalks are filmed in an underwater tub. See you in the next video, and thank you and goodbye. Archaic and disproven, dead flat Earth. Rest in peace, Robert Bob Noddle and his flat Earth.